it's much better living on the truth. Running from others because of lies is just not worth it. It's not worth the effort. How much more effort could you be putting in other things if you weren't trying to constantly build stories to lie? To build a good lie, you guys sit there and go, all right, this is going on, this is going on. Where was I? The effort it takes, it's just not worth it. And it's not worth the relationships that you'll scar over it, and lose.
Welcome to CA. I'm Lance again.
I'm Chad again.
Well, you're this like jet setter. Here, there, everywhere.
I mean, here, there, everywhere. Yeah, I mean.
But I'm about to do it too. I'm going to be down in Nicaragua.
I mean, realistically, you did it. I did it. You did it. I did it. Like, we're both.
Tick for tag.
Yeah, we're both in and out all the time. So, fun stuff.
That's good though. I mean, busy.
Yeah.
Means things are happening, things are getting done. And
yeah.
So we're like discussing like all the million topics that there's so many good ones out there.
The funny thing is we always do a show before the show. So we sit here and talk. I mean, last time it was 40 minutes we talked. This time it was 20, 30 minutes. We always get into all these topics and we're like, let's talk about this. Well, let's talk about it. Like me and Vinny did it last week.
Oh, really?
We talked about literally an entire topic and he said something. I was like, wait a second. Let's talk about that.
There's gold. Like you're sifting. You're like, we can always hit that topic that's going to be relevant for a season.
Right.
And then we were talking through, hey, did you do this in school? Da, da, da. And then this thought came through and is like, I grew up in church. Did you grow up in church?
100%.
I'm 90s baby, teenage. Our messages were, don't do bad things, don't sin, live a good life.
Yep.
Okay, growing up in Vegas, super hard to do.
Yeah.
I mean, sorry.
Imagine.
I mean, I came out, thank God, without no addiction.
It's crazy.
Didn't create this like gambling, drinking, did not, try the things of Vegas.
Yeah.
But living in a city like that, super accessible.
Yeah.
I mean, when your grocery stores are open 24 hours a day,
Yep.
they sell everything there.
Yeah.
So it's like, it wasn't like where you're in some towns, you have to work really hard or, there's a dry town or taboo.
Yeah.
Man, Vegas was built on sin. And so, you're pastoring, you hear your pastor's like, don't sin. And it's like, it's so cliche.
Yeah.
The 10 Commandments.
Right.
When you're a kid, because you feel like you're being robbed of fun.
Right. 100% fun sucker.
Yeah. Did you ever feel like that? Like,
all the time. Yeah. Because I mean, you get a list of things that you can't do. And then the list of things you can do was so small.
They're like, you can show up to youth group.
Yeah. And it's like, it's funny because then like, because I remember too having this thought of when I was a kid, I was like, everything I do is a sin. Like,
right.
Like, I mean, the thoughts I have are a sin.
Music.
Yeah,
and that was the big thing when we grew up.
Yes. The music I listen to, the people I'm around apparently are sin. Like, and it's like everything's sin. And you're sitting here going, well, that's not fun. Like,
only have Christian, that was the big thing. Have Christian friends, but you need to evangelize.
Yes.
You're like, I don't know what to.
Who am I supposed to evangelize? Christian friends.
Right.
Like, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, you look around like, bro, like, I'm sinning everywhere. Like, and so like, I can't measure up to this, like 100%.
So we're having fun here because we grew up in the church.
Right.
We understand now that we're adulting, I like to call it, because we're raising kids and holding jobs and all these things. But you're as a kid, you're like, nothing bad's ever going to happen to me.
Right.
Until
it does.
It does. And then you're like, oh man, snap. And so, we were talking through holding on to a lie,
right,
which is a sin, but the sins that get you comfortable to be okay until they become so grave. What do you do?
Yeah, I mean, and the other thing too is that I think lies are built into our society, right? Because like you even look at like, parenting.
Right.
How much do we lie to our kids?
Right. Don't do this.
To keep them safe.
Right.
And it's just kind of because like, how much is a lie versus, a soft truth? And then it's like, well, wait a second, like, isn't that a lie? Like,
so my hand's in the cookie jar, eating cookies at 9 o'clock at night. We're like, you can't eat these.
Yeah.
But I can.
Yeah. 100%. I'll eat the cookie. My son will go, cookie. I go, that's the last one, buddy. And 2 hours later, Daddy found another one. Yeah, exactly. And the other thing too is like when it comes to, tough conversations and stuff, like I know some people's parenting style is to kind of not lie about it, but like not tell the whole truth.
Right.
That's a lie. But and that's what I mean. Is like lies are just embedded in our society. Lies are embedded in our life. Like,
right.
You look at I mean, just be honest. Like the government's like, hey, the public doesn't need to know,
right?
And it's like it's because hey, it's our national security.
Yep.
Okay, I mean, I get that, but it's like okay, once again, it's a lie. So it's like so it's like it's so funny because as you start to unpeel things and unpeel just interactions in life, you can start to see where you lie. Yeah. Like casually, like just in conversation. Hey, so how's your day? Good. Meanwhile, you have a wreck at home. Then nothing's been going good. Oh yeah, it's been good. Hey, you see at church it all the time. Oh, hey man, how you doing? Really good, brother. And the person goes home and his life's a wreck. And it's like you don't have to lie about why do people have to feel like they can have to lie?
Well, the lying, there's a like layers,
right?
And I look at getting older. Now I'm like, okay, I'm past the 40 mark. I'm gonna be 43 at the end of the year.
Right.
And I'm like, living a wholesome life definitely removes drama. If you could tell like an 18 or 19-year-old, like, yeah, I get that this could be fun. I get that it doesn't feel like there's consequences. But, when you're in your mid 40s, 50s, you see people on their second marriage, fourth marriage, alimony, and they're like, all these bad decisions that are compounding, all because it starts with typically a lie.
A simple lie.
The lie is that won't hurt me. That's the true lie, right?
Yes.
It's not the sin, it's I have enough self-control.
Yeah.
It won't hurt me.
Yeah. I can deal with it.
And our pastor loves to say, nobody knows how to put down the drink. It's like, well, prove to me that drinking's wrong. Da 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 da. Well, it's hard to have one and shut it down, and it just adds to it. And then you got people who are like, well, I need these pain pills for this. Which I mean, look, when you're in pain, you're in pain.
Yeah, sure.
But the problem is when you're dealing with pain and you want to just drown out the pain, and so it's kind of that figuring out what is good and what's not good. So I had this situation, we're all like 19-ish, 20. These guys, I don't know how or what, they get lit, get too many brewskis. Maybe they're doing the hard stuff, whatever.
Yeah.
Get drunk, get in the car. I'm okay to drive, another lie, right?
Right.
Some people make it home okay. Others don't.
Yeah.
And they run through a stop sign in a housing. Nothing crazy.
Wow.
Well, the other cars, it was the right of way. Smack them, T-bone them.
Wow.
Did they stop? Did they not stop? The problem is the passenger does a 180, bleeds out to death, dies. Guy driving has to now deal with the consequence, seeing his friend die. And now they're asking questions. What do you say?
Right.
I'm drunk. Oh, did you run that red? Did you run the stop sign?
Right.
Because now it goes from car T-boning you to manslaughter.
Right.
Well,
two different things.
Car T-boned him is what was the story was presented.
Yeah.
You got all this stuff. 10 years later, stories start to get leaking because people can't hold on. But I see this individual and his life. He had to move away from the town. Yep. You could just see in the pictures they were never the same. And it's like I wonder what skeletons they get haunted with.
Right.
What's scary is another friend of mine has no problems with that on his third DUI. And you're like, oh, one of our buddies died this way.
Right.
And now you're continuing to do whatever and it got to the point where he said he's at a party. Somebody happened to steal his car and now, if you've ever lived or been in Vegas in July, it's like hell opened up and it's running 110. It's 100 at night. Like nobody wears a long sleeve.
No.
In July.
That makes sense.
For 3 weeks straight, he's wearing a long sleeve. Well, he couldn't show the scratches of when he flipped the car.
Oh, wow.
And so he had to like build this lie to hide all the things that happened because if he got his third DUI, he loses his driver's license, which then he couldn't go to work. Right. And it's like, if you could go back in time and explain, hey, this one scenario is going to compound. Right. You're going to get away with it for 5 years. But and it's crazy as you get older, you start to see the compound of sin.
Yeah.
When you're young, man, you're invincible.
Right. And one thing too is, and this is kind of the sad part about it is sometimes And I look back on it, I'm thankful for the consequences I had to face for things.
Right.
Because they prevented things. They were preventative.
Right.
Like, hey, maybe I lied about something I found out, and then I had to deal with the consequences of my own actions. Well, then it caused me to think about the next time I did something stupider.
Right.
Like, hey, I'm not going to do that stupid thing because, hey, I didn't like the consequences I had to deal with.
Right.
So, like, in that case, like, hey, you get your first one, you're able to get away, get off with it. Second one, right? It's like that. If you had just had the full consequences of the first one, you may not have been.
Or you got busted early on.
Right.
You're drinking prematurely before your age, or just these little things. And, you hear a lot of people say, oh, I had an unfair childhood.
Yeah.
So your dad, I remember you telling stories like you would work, with your dad.
Yeah.
And
so,
like,
the summer, we'd help him at
Did you ever work on the weekends?
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
So I worked all the time on the weekends, especially once I could drive. So it limited what I could do on Friday because of what I had to do Saturday.
Yeah.
And I never was like one of those like, oh, I lost my childhood because I had to work or I had to help the family out.
Yeah.
I'm so thankful that I had to work,
right?
Because it didn't allow me to get mischievous and do things I shouldn't have because I knew the responsibility I had to keep. And so when we're younger, being responsible with something is always better than just having free idle time.
100%. Like, cause when you say that, like, I remember after Katrina, we lived in New Orleans and stuff like that. Our church got completely displaced. There was like, 10 feet plus of water on the property, like destroyed it, right? So we meet in a hotel. So I remember going with my dad early in the morning every Sunday and going to picking up the trailer of all the church stuff, driving up the hotel and setting it up. So like, it's funny because now what I do with my life is like that type of stuff, right? And so it's kind of funny because what was teaching me, had I never end up in in the church doing what I did, then it would have been fine because it taught me responsibility early. It taught me being selfless. It taught, I didn't get any reward out of it. You know what I'm saying? I was the, kid helping my dad set up sound equipment. Right. Like it's just, it was so menial, but because he said there was responsibility with it, there was purpose in it. What it did was it created a character in me that allowed me to like be good. Like, you know what I mean?
I think it did more than that.
Yeah.
In your profession, there's a lot of places that you could make a lot more money.
Sure.
Doing video editing outside of a church realm.
Absolutely.
They're probably the least paying position.
Yeah.
Just in the sports realm, forget the bad stuff, just the normal, all the sport leagues and all that.
100%.
And I look at what, being involved in a church, what that did with outreaches. And I see parents not dragging. You ever heard that? Like, I was drugged to church. I didn't go to church. I was drugged to church. But it's not just the Sunday. It's those events that, like, when you're 12 to like 16, where you really don't want to.
Right.
But I think it does build character, but it opens up something that later on, the Holy Spirit has room to work with.
That's a good point.
And I think we've got to be careful as parents, depending on what age group. But if I could go back and tell anybody, if you have a kid between the age of 12 to 17, man, get them involved as many things that the church has, 100%. From like cooking, cleaning, mission trips, outreaches, because they need to be exposed to stuff in a healthy environment. Because hopefully that sticks as they get into that free will.
Well, and you saw, there was a famous comedian that was talking about church, and he said that, and he's not a Christian that we know of. I mean, he says he's not, and he said that when he has kids, they're going to be in church, and they're going to be because hey, they're going to learn about God, they're going to learn about how to serve others. Like it's like, but that's a perspective of somebody that's not a Christian, saying I want my kid involved in church like that because of what it'll do for them. Just as a person, and because he's seeing it as like a good moral, like it'd be something where they'll know right from wrong. Like that's crazy. You have somebody that's saying, "Hey, look," and it's like we lived it, we both lived it, so like it's 100% true. And like even the decisions I made too, like with stepping out of full-time ministry, was because I wanted my kids to see church in a good light. Because what I was fearful of is if I was constantly working at the church 40, 50, 60 hours a week, never really home, that they would grow to resent church. So I wanted them to see church as a good thing. And so the decisions I made in my life were so that I could preserve that same feeling I had for church in my kids. And that they would get a good experience, because the truth is like, I got raised by the church. That's, I mean, until I was 18, I was basically serving in church. You know, I from the age of like 16 to almost 19, I mean, I was at the church 30, 40, 50 hours a week,
right,
as a volunteer. And I would never take back those years because they were so formidable for who I am.
Was there bad things that happened?
Of course.
And I think that's that, like,
yeah,
well, I'm trying to like shield them. I'm like, where are you going to shield them from? Like, there's not favoritism in the baseball league,
right,
football league,
right.
There's not favoritism in academics.
But the thing is, and this is the thing that the difference is there's a covering.
Right.
So it's like
there's grace.
There's grace, but it's like the great thing is the reason I love the fact that I was able to be as involved as I was, and I would love that my kid would be able to be that way, is because what I did was I stepped out from under the covering of my parents when I was still living in their house, but out from that covering to where I had to have my own reputation, right? And my own, and I got to do it in a safe environment, though.
Right.
I got to do it around people that loved me, that cared for me, people that were teaching me, people. And here's the thing: the crazy thing is I learned more life stuff in 2-3 years there than I did really tech stuff and production stuff. I was observing things, but I went through kind of a hyper 6 months of like learning everything. At the end of my time there, when I was there, I was learning how to have brothers, right? Because I never had brothers,
or just
talk a sister,
and to a leader,
exactly.
And not have your name be the reason why you get to do something.
Exactly.
Or don't get to do something.
Like I got to experience what a spiritual father was like. I got to experience what being told, "Hey, you're wrong." Mm-hmm. And being like, what? And like, and being a kid and having all that. And, but in the bubble of, I still had a covering though.
Right.
Because I was in church. And so I was learning right from wrong in the church. And I think the problem is that that's the design. That's how, I mean, you look at the Bible, community within the church. Like you would think that's the thing that, like, that's what I want my kid involved, because I know it works. Because I look at you, we look at all the people that we know that walk through that. Like, look, they have pretty good lives now. Like, they're not told down. Now, look, I get there's a lot of people that went through the church. They experience horrible things, and there's not,
But on the flip side, there's way more horrible things.
Oh my goodness,
100%. In whatever group that you go hang out with. If it's the cheerleading group, if it's the whatever group. Sin abounds.
Oh my goodness.
And so it's kind of like
does it happen here or does it happen here?
Yeah, it's gonna happen everywhere. We're just trying to teach, and it's funny because we successfully bounced everywhere again.
Yeah.
But it's like when you start those small little things, it grows into something big, and then we're looking back on like, man, thank God our parents put us here. It wasn't a negative thing, and I think a lot of times as adults we regret. Like I knew a couple of guys that grew up in a very healthy family. So like mom, dad, brothers, brother. But his mom was real strict on him.
Right.
He felt like he didn't get to go and sow his seed before he got married and regretted it. You have no baby mama drama.
Right.
You have no diseases fall. But like the lie of I didn't get to. And so it's like it doesn't matter what parents do, a kid's going to find out how to blame the other, parent or environment. Like, well, I got to do this, but I didn't get to do that. And it's like, come on, like you gotta realize, like, as we grow up, there's going to be limitations.
Right. And I think at some point too, the other way I look at it too, is so everything you're saying, I would rather to fail in under that umbrella than to fail outside. And the other thing is, I got called on the carpet for stuff that I would do that I did not get called on the carpet for when I was outside the church. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's like, I'm looking at it, I'm like, I'm so thankful someone said, hey, you have a character flaw.
Jobs don't care that you have a character flaw. Jobs, if you show up on time, get your job done. They don't care if you go home, if there's a pipe there, a bottle there, what you're watching, just show up and do your job. I don't care. And that's the thing is, like, they're not going to call your internal character your moral flaws. But in the church, that's our job, because we're trying to refine someone 100%. To be a diamond.
100%. Well, okay. And that's the thing is there's a purpose.
Right.
Like they want the best for you, like, and that's the thing is like they want to refine you. And I think I never got it early like that. Hey, like these people, they had the best intention for me.
Right.
And because they would cut on me and cut on me and cut on me and cut on me. I'd be like, man, when is this going to stop? Like, do they even like me?
Right.
This stuff would seep in. And I realized, now stepping back, 10, 10,000 feet above now going, wow, I wouldn't be the dad that I am. I wouldn't be the husband that I am. I wouldn't be the friend. I wouldn't be the brother that I am if they hadn't cut on me like that.
Right.
And like then being so thankful for the seasons where like sometimes bro, people cut deep. Like I know you know, like I mean they cut deep.
Sadly I'm that guy.
Yeah.
So there's about 4 guys that I ride really hard. And sometimes people are like, dude, I don't know if you're like being fair. And I'm like, no, I'm trying to get them prepared for manhood. Cause one, they're already past the 18 mark. So they're legally ready to be drafted. They got to pay taxes or they're a man, but they got to be a husband one day, a father one day. And no one's helping them. So I'm like, this is how life is. I'm sorry, but if you want to succeed, and it's not that we do it out of like,
no,
but it's those tough conversations to try to build one's character when the trials come.
Right. And so the flip side now is we're on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
So we're on the side that we were when we were kids. We're on that side.
Yep.
And so now, like when we cut on people or when we say, hey, what are you doing? Like, it's so funny to me because there's sometimes it'll be like, oh, I just did that. Like I remember the conversations that I had with people that were doing that to me. And I'm like, I'm so thankful for them. So you know what? I'm just going to lean into this.
Right.
Like, you know what, man, what are you doing? Like, hey, what were you thinking? Like, and so I love that now the reciprocation of it, because it's cool because it's like to be on the other side of it now and be like, you know, we still don't know everything. We still have a lot of things we'll figure out, but you know, there's simple life experiences that we've walked through that we see happening and unfolding in other people's life. We're like, hey, like cliff up ahead, you know, like, and I love that we're able to do that now because it's like the purpose of like, okay, seeing where we were, understanding, hey, this was wrong, pivoting, going through, sometimes going off the cliff. Like we've gone off the cliff a couple times, and so we have those stories that say, hey man, listen, where this is headed, I'll tell you exactly exactly how you land up. And I'll walk through with you if you want to go that direction. But I would recommend not doing that, you know, and then they jump off the cliff and you're like, all right, let's clean it up. Let's clean you up. Let's bandage you up. Let's fix these relationships, you know, and all that. You know, it's crazy, man, because it's so funny because I've seen stuff play out in people where I was on the edge of decisions, right? I was able to peel back and not make them. And I knew the destruction would happen if I made decisions. And then I see friends and people that I love make those decisions and see them go through the same trajectory that I was headed.
Mm-hmm.
And have to go, thank God I had counsel in my life that said, hey, don't do that.
Right.
I let them go, why? It's a great opportunity, great people. Why would I say no to that? And they're like, say no to it. And you're like, I don't understand why. And now being on the flip side going, I understand why now.
Oh yeah. And like you're saying, having the confidence to recognize, man, that's a baby sin. That lie that and sometimes we look at lie as me telling you a story,
right?
Not me lying to myself.
True.
And I think when we've digested a lie and ate it as the truth,
right?
It's hard to now because now it's right and wrong. Well, my right is different from your wrong,
right?
And recognizing, hey, I'm willing to put my neck on the line to say, dude, that ain't cool. It's gonna end up hurting you. And just recently, someone's like, I realized everything that we're saying is getting back channeled and going up. I said, oh yeah, I doubled down on it. Because I'm willing to take the chance. I'd rather be wrong than right and see somebody implode or explode. Because when you've been around things, it becomes cyclical.
Yeah.
You can 100%. See burnout. Yeah. You can recognize misdirection. You can recognize, and I think we get so stuck in what we do as a society, we forget the people around us. And as churchgoers, we're trying to help others not hit the landmines of life.
Yeah. I mean, and that's, as we kind of wrap it up, I think that's the best thing there is like, you see things and you're like, man, like and on the other side too, it's like when you have to watch people hit those landmines, it's the worst. Cause you're it's almost like a sinking feeling. Like, cause like some people I know, like they'll be like, hey, I'm glad they figured it out, and it's like, yeah, but like, man, like they didn't have to do that.
Those lonely nights.
Yeah.
When like the bank account's at zero, or you've gotten the like, hey, we no longer need you.
Yep.
Or you really screwed up.
Nobody's responding to you.
Right. They ghosting you.
Oh man, it's the worst. And like we've been there. Like
especially when you think the person you've texted is so close.
Yeah.
And then 3 days go by, a week go by, and you're like, oh, I guess I wasn't as close as
this relationship's over.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, 100%. And it's the worst because then like but that's the learning period.
Right.
Though. Because then that gut feeling that you start feeling, that heart-wrenching like stab, that's when you start to go, why did this happen? Oh, this happened because X, Y, Z. Yep. And then you start to backtrack and you're like, oh my goodness, this is self-inflicted.
Yep.
And I think that's where the learning opportunity comes from. And, and
that's going back to the beginnings when you start lying to yourself because it was their fault.
Yeah.
And I think that's where you land on is that a lot of the things we do to ourselves is self-inflicted, especially our health.
Oh my goodness.
I can't believe I had a heart attack while you're eating a Big Mac, every day of the week. Whatever.
And Red Bull every day of the week. Yeah.
Woo. Yeah. The best one is the kidney stone.
Oh, yeah.
I can't believe I have a kidney stone. Like, you don't drink anything but tea,
sugar, and
it's like, what do you think's gonna happen? And it's like, oh, I guess I have this. Like, somebody just told me, like, oh, I think I have an ulcer. I'm like, yeah, man. Like, what do you think happens at our age when you haven't been responsible?
Yeah.
And it's like we lied to ourselves that it's not gonna affect me.
Yeah.
I can do that, but it won't hurt me.
Yeah.
And it's those lies that we buy into.
And that's another. Yeah.
And it overtakes us.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I mean, and at the end of the day, I think what lies do is they put us in a prison because eventually you lie so much that you've now built a wall between you and the truth and you and other people, and you have to live in your lies.
Right.
And then the only way to break out is to just literally go, hey, everything that I am is a lie. And like have to go and like actually pretty much repent to people.
Right.
And like you have to start telling on yourself. And that's because I when I was young, I was caught up in a lie cycle, just always lying. And I realized I need to start telling on myself. And so and that's exactly what I just started telling myself. Actually, man, like this happened. Like I was starting to tell on myself. And what I did was it broke the lying, I guess you could say, just the spirit of lying, just thing that had gripped me. And I got to
I don't know if I really agree with like a spirit justification. Because I had the reputation, you're just mean.
Yeah.
And I was like, I think I'm mean because I was aggravated, so I was gonna be mean to everybody.
Yeah.
And I had to find the way out, and that was get busy in what you should be doing.
Right.
Then you don't have the energy to go meddle in other people's businesses and become that like person that's known as being like always rough and mean. It's like we justify in layers of lies. And so that's why I look at it as like, if you cut out the justification and you're just like, okay, is this going to be good 10 years from now, 5 years from now?
Yeah.
Okay, then. If it's not, I got to start figuring out how to get it out.
100%. Yep. And that's good, man. And so, I mean, the biggest takeaway is, if you've built yourself full of lies, it's time to come clean. Yeah. Like, come clean to yourself, come clean to others, because the house of cards is going to fall down eventually. It's fallen down in both of our lives multiple times, and it's like what we see is that it's much better living on the truth.
Oh, totally.
Because the truth is, running from yourself and running from others because of lies is just not worth it. It's not worth the effort.
Right.
Like, how much more effort could you be putting in other things if you weren't trying to constantly build stories to lie?
Right.
Because, I mean, that's the thing, is it takes time, man. Like, I mean, to build a good lie, you guys sit there and go, all right, this is going on, this is going on. Where was I?
Yeah.
I was doing, it's like the effort it takes, it's just not worth it. And it's not worth the relationships that you'll scar over it, and lose. Like, I've lost relationships.
I can't stand you because all of these stories are just popping in my head.
Yeah.
The best one, I'm going to end on this is our wedding, me and Alexa's wedding, our, the video graphic or the video person that were going to come, I should have known better because 2 months earlier, we rented all these cameras. We film 12-hour days for 3 days straight. They didn't put the SD cards in. How do you forget? Well, we found out they had a pot problem.
Oh.
Like they were just like, and then one buddy was like, are you doing, is it called white amateur? Like you're zeroing out to the white.
Oh yeah.
And like, oh, we'll just do that in editing. Is you can't fix everything in edit. Day of the wedding, no show, get a text 10 minutes into the wedding. Oh, we won't be able to be there. Something came up. So it's like, what do? You're like, you're dressed, the ceremony's going, okay, I hope everything's okay. Dude, they showed up to our ceremony or the reception.
No.
For the food. If you want to see Alexis, go get them. She had a butter knife ready to just stab somebody. And Alexis is going to be okay. We'll figure this out.
Oh, man.
But it's those lies of, they either didn't have the equipment they said they did, whatever.
Something was,
and I should have known better. Like, oh, they're gonna help us. This is a free service, yay! Yeah. And another lie. And it's like when we accept them, They're doing one. I should have known better. I accepted something and it ruined two things.
Yep.
So I don't have any video of the wedding. We have still pictures, but it's those little things.
Yeah.
I should have known better. Their relationship with us is zilch now.
Yeah.
But in the same breath, we don't have any video because we didn't recognize
what was going on.
Yeah, and it's like
That's
I
tough.
bought a lie.
Yeah.
A good one.
Yeah. That's tough, man.
And those are the things like I think you and I could just run a marathon on
1,000%.
but it's like we got to live lives and recognize what's going on so we don't create our own lives.
Yeah. It's good.
So,
yep. All right.
Well, see you next time.
Yes, sir.